All right, in lesson 3 of making Pong, we are going to go over how to make classes and the paddle class, which will go up and down on the screen to bounce our ball. So we start by calling it class paddle, and we're going to use inheritance. We're inheriting from sprite, pygame.Sprite.Sprite, which will just let us use some of the sprite methods. And it has an initialization, give it self, and a starting position, startX and startY. Then, just to finish off the inheritance, we want to call the init function of sprite by doing this. Now, we want to give it a width. It's going to be pretty thin, a height, it's going to be pretty tall, and a speed of 10, which is how fast it's going to move at each frame. Now, some more pygame specific stuff. We are doing self.image equals pygame.Surface, pass in a tuple of self.width and self.height. Then we're going to make a rect from that image, pygame.draw.rect. We can give it any color. We're just going to do blue for now, but you can, pick a color from the list or make your own color. Then we are going to pass in a tuple, 0, 0, the width, and the height. Now we need to get our rect by doing self.image.getRect. And lastly, inside our initialization function, we need to set our position from the startX and startY that we passed in. So with this rect, which is how we move it, we do self.rect.x equals startX. And you guessed it, self.rect.y equals startY. So we're going to move our paddle, which is a rect, based on this x and y, self.rect.x and self.rect.y. We also want to have two little methods for going up and one for going down. So to go up, we pass in self because it's a class method. We want to move the y down by the speed, which is pretty strange. But if you think about it, the top coordinate of a screen is top left is 0, 0. And as you go down the screen, you increase the y value. As you go up, you decrease the y value. So we're going to decrease the y value to go up. And to go down, we do the opposite. We increase the y value. And self.speed is this class variable, 10. So just think about when you go down, you increase the y position by 10 every frame that you're holding down. All right, so we have this class. You can save it and run it, and nothing's going to happen. It's not going to show up because we have to draw it to the screen. So to draw it to the screen, we have to first initialize paddle. We have to make a paddle. So we have this generator, this thing that can build lots of paddles, but we have to build some paddles. And we do that like this. Player 1 equals paddle. Start X is 50. Start Y is going to be halfway down the screen. Let's do height divided by 2. Player 2 equals paddle. And this time it's going to be 50 away from the right side of the board, which is width. And again, height divided by 2. And still running this won't draw anything on the screen because we haven't called anything to draw it on the screen. Now, we're going to use this pygame specific thing called a sprite group. And we do all sprites, just a variable, pygame equals pygame.sprite.group. And this will hold all our sprites. So we're going to add player 1 and player 2 to all sprites. Now, notice this is all before a while loop. Inside our while loop, we want to draw the paddles inside the drawing code. So we can just do that right here. Draw paddles. Or just draw all sprites. Draw all sprites. Because we have this all sprites variable, we can just do all sprites dot draw screen. So we're going to put it on our screen. And this, when you run it, yep, gives us our two paddles. They don't move yet, even though we have our up and down functions, just because we don't handle any events for the key presses. So that's our next step. There's a few ways to handle events. We have this event.type equals pygame.quit, but an easy way with key presses is to just do keys equals pygame.key.getPressed. And this will return all the keys that are, pressed down at that moment. And if keys of pygame.key, like K, W, if the W is pressed, we're going to have player 1 go up. So player 1 up equals W. And remember, we already have these methods up. If keys of pygame.ks, player 1 down, S, player 1 dot down. Then we want to use the arrow keys for player 2. So if keys of pygame.k up, capital UP, player 2 dot up, and finally, if keys of pygame.k down, all caps, player 2 down, down arrow, player 2 dot down. All right, so that will move our paddle, and when we run it, we can move our paddles, which is just what we want. However, you can notice that the paddles can go way off the screen, they can mess with the scoreboard, and that's no good. So we need a little bit of boundary checking. And to do that, we're going to go inside our up method and our down method, and just make sure that the position is where we want it to be. So if self.rect.y is less than 53, and you'd think, why not just do 50? But 53 makes it look a little cleaner because there is a width, a thickness to each object. So pretty much, when you're going up, go to the scoreboard height. And if you're at the scoreboard height, then stay there. So, right, you press up, your position is going to be subtracted. Say your starting position is starting y equals 60. You go up, then your y now equals, right, subtract by 10 is 50, and then 50 is less than 53, so it's true. We're going to enter this, and then set the y equal to 53. So it'll never go below 53 when we actually present it. And we're going to do the same thing for down. If self.rect.y is greater than, one interesting thing is the paddles, the position of the paddle is at the very top left. And if you remember, it has a height of 100. So if this is greater than height minus 100, just set the y to height minus 100. All right. And now we can't enter the scoreboard and we can't leave the screen. We have our paddles working. Congrats. So if you have any questions, feel free to just look in the comments. I'll have the entire code up to here, copied down there. And anything else, feel free to ask. Good luck.